New Mexico, what's today New Mexico, Arizona, and a large part of Colorado, and southern Utah, and southern Nevada, and California. This territory was Mexican. President Polk wanted it. Anyway, backing up a little bit as to how Polk got to be president. The parties started meeting in conventions to choose their candidate. Now, today, they still have conventions, but the difference today is everybody knows who's going to get the nomination before the convention even starts. But in those days, the convention actually chose the candidate. So the Democratic Party met, and they struggled over, and they had a rule that was last up until in the mid-20th century that the winning candidate had to have 2/3 vote. Well, nobody in the Democratic Party could get 2/3 vote. So after voting on several candidates and couldn't get them anywhere with them, finally someone said, let's nominate James Knox Polk. Now Polk had been governor of Tennessee, but he was not considered presidential timber. This was the first time in history the dark horse candidate was to come forward, and a relative unknown, who the country didn't know, but they put him forward, the Democrats, and he got the nomination of his party, and he barely got the election. The Whigs ran Henry Clay again, and Henry Clay lost for the third time. But anyway, Polk became president barely. Now, Polk goes down in history as the first president who was worn out by the job. If you discount William Henry Harrison, a good leader, folk, knows he's got to delegate responsibility. So he'll say to one of his subordinates, I want you to look into this issue here and report back to me. And I want you to look into that issue and you report back to me. You look to this issue and you... Instead, Polk insists that he take care of everything and do everything. And he was awake many a time late at night, working at his desk. He insisted on being involved even in the most trivial of matters. In short order, he burned himself out, he ruined his health, and he found himself by the end of his term a very, very sick man and refused to be considered for renomination. And if he would have run, he probably would have lost. And I think he knew that. But anyway, he did not run for a second term. But under him, we got involved in the Mexican War. There was a border dispute. Texas claimed that the Rio Grande was the boundary of the United States and Mexico. No, the Nueces River, according to Mexicans, was a boundary. The Nueces River is a river somewhat north of the Rio Grande. So the Mexicans sent an army across the Rio Grande, but on their side of the Nueces River. The Americans also sent an army, and the Mexicans fired at them. And Polk said, in spite of my best efforts to prevent it, Mexico has provoked war. He asked for a declaration of war, and he got it. A few Americans were killed by the Mexicans. So he accused Mexico of starting the war. Now, about this time, there was a young congressman who had just been elected. He did not get re-elected, named Abraham Lincoln. He asked Mr. Polk, show me the spot where Mexicans actually shed American blood on American soil. Show me the spot, his famous spot resolutions, because the territory was disputed. Lincoln was against the war. Very important, because when Lincoln became president later, as hopefully all of you know, Lincoln helped make up between the United States and Mexico. The president of Mexico, Benito Juarez, knew that Lincoln was pro-Mexican. So this helped cure the bad blood, even though the bad blood between the United States and Mexico persists to this day. It has never really healed. Now, to make a long story short, we declared war in Mexico. The Mexicans lost battle after battle, battle after battle. And during that time, they had the states of California, California, Arizona, New Mexico, and southern Nevada, southern Utah, and southern Colorado. All that territory that was once theirs taken from them. But the United States did not just take it. The United States sat down and negotiated and paid the Mexicans $15 million, which was money that the Mexican treasury really needed. Then, because we weren't quite happy, a few years later, about 1854, we purchased some more land from Mexico for a big sum called the Gadsden Purchase, so that we could put a railroad in. The railroad was put, but We bought some territory in southern Arizona and southern New Mexico from Mexico for a big sum of money, more than $10 million, to kind of ease our conscience because we felt like we had done the Mexicans dirty. Again, now the Mexican War was a proving ground for officers that later became famous during the Civil War. Among them, General Lee, Robert E. Lee, General Stonewall Jackson, all were junior officers during the Mexican War, along with the Union General, General Grant, and General McClellan, and several other officers who fought in the Mexican War became officers during the Civil War, for higher ranking, of course, by the time of the Civil War. So the Mexican War was the preparation for the Civil War. But another thing about the Mexican War, a lot of the men who fought it came home permanently weakened. The land of Mexico is the land when you visit, you've got to be really, really careful what you eat and drink, especially if you're American. The Mexicans have immunity to that stuff. Well, you can visit Mexico and drink their water. I did once. And I don't even want to describe what happened to me. I mean, I survived it, but my brother once thought that I was about to perish. I mean, I got very sick. People still do. But a lot of American soldiers who went there came back never the same again. Permanent, and also, wild animals and disease took out more Americans than the Mexican bullets. What kind of wild animals? There were rattlesnakes, scorpions, and their snakes are deadly. Not to mention certain species of wild cats, and not to mention coyotes and whatever else might be down there. But your book mentioned wild animals took away a lot of Americans. So the Mexican War hurt the people who fought it. It was not easy, it was not cheap. All right. Again, your book goes into more detail about how that we fought battle after battle. One of the men, generals who who fought in the Mexican War as a general became president, General Zachary Taylor. He later became president. He was a Southerner, a Whig, a slave owner. All right. Okay, with that, chapter 13, the Slave South. All right, chapter 13. Oops, before I start, I've learned, folks, that this helps me when I'm making up my videos.